I still don't know why that moment stayed with me. Her hand over mine, the hum of the air conditioner, the faint smell of motor oil and lemon lotion. Maybe because it shouldn't have happened at all. It started quietly, like most things that end up changing you. My stepsister, Layla, had dragged her car to the small repair shop I worked at, a tired silver sedan that rattled like it had secrets. She came with a friend, someone she'd been talking about for months. She's going through a lot. Be nice, Layla had said. I didn't expect her to look like that. Not flashy, not young, just present. Her name was Sana. Early 40s, maybe mid. A few strands of gray caught the sunlight as she stepped out of the car, sunglasses in hand. Her eyes moved like she was used to watching before speaking. Does it run at all? I asked, wiping grease from my hands. She smiled, the kind of polite, practiced smile people give when they're exhausted but trying not to show it. It got me here. That's something. Layla was busy on her phone, so it was mostly me and Sana, the stranger with a calm voice and eyes that seemed to notice everything wrong in the world without judging it. I bent to check the engine while she stood a few feet away, arms crossed, sunlight drawing a soft edge around her. You work here full-time? She asked. Yeah, trying to finish some classes too. She nodded slowly, like she understood more than I'd said. That's good. Keeps your hands busy, your mind quieter. That line, your mind quieter, landed somewhere it shouldn't have. I looked up, caught her eyes for half a second longer than I meant to. She looked away first, brushing her hair behind her ear. When I turned back to the car, I pretended to focus, but the silence between us wasn't empty anymore. It was aware. Layla eventually left to grab coffee, leaving Sana to wait in the shop's office while I ran diagnostics. I brought her a bottle of water, a small thing, and she took it with both hands, smiling faintly. Thank you, she said, her voice softer now. You didn't have to. I know. Her fingers brushed mine as she reached for the bottle. Just that. Barely anything. But for some reason, neither of us moved right away. Her touch was light, deliberate. Maybe I just imagined it. A second too long. Then she pulled back, and it was gone. The clock ticked. Outside, someone revved a motorcycle. Inside, everything slowed down. I found myself talking more than I usually did, about engines, music, how the days all felt the same lately. She listened the way few people do, not waiting for their turn to speak, just listening. Every time she met my eyes, something tightened in my chest, like a quiet recognition. When Layla came back, the air shifted again. Normal. Casual. She handed Sana her coffee, joked about her ancient car, and I nodded like nothing had happened. But when they left, Sana glanced back once through the glass door, just long enough for me to wonder if she'd felt it too. That night, I kept replaying that moment, the warmth of her hand, the silence that followed. It was small, ordinary, but it didn't feel like something that should have mattered. And yet, even now, I can still feel where her fingers touched mine, like a mark no one else can see. I didn't expect to see her again so soon. But a few days later, Sana's car was back, parked just outside the shop before we even opened. She stood there, leaning on the driver's side door, phone in one hand, a folded piece of paper in the other. The early light made everything look sharper. The dust floating in the air, the faint lines around her eyes, the curve of her shoulders when she exhaled. Morning, I said, trying not to sound surprised. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes this time. I think the car's done pretending it can be fixed. I opened the hood, more for something to do than because I thought I could save it. She hovered beside me, close enough that I could smell her perfume, faint citrus, worn thin by the day. You could trade it in, I said. Too many memories in this one. Her voice caught slightly, then steadied. It's silly, I know. It's not, I said, before I could stop myself. She looked at me then, really looked, and something in her expression softened, as if she'd been holding her breath too long. We ended up sitting on the edge of the curb while I waited for a delivery truck. She tucked her knees slightly inward, keeping her distance, but I could feel her presence anyway. Quiet, deliberate, the way certain songs fill a room even when played low. Layla told me you don't go out much, I said. She gave a short laugh, dry and light. Layla talks too much. Then, after a pause, she's right though. Why not? I used to. She turned the bottle of water in her hands, the label half peeled. Then life got smaller, I guess. It happens. Her words lingered. Life got smaller. The way she said it wasn't bitter, it was tired. Like she'd made peace with it, even if she shouldn't have had to. She kept talking about practical things after that. The car, the cost of new tires, her job at a local clinic. But none of it sounded like what she really meant. Her eyes kept drifting, her voice softer each time. At one point, she stopped mid-sentence. A gust of wind carried loose hair across her face. Without thinking, I reached out and tucked it behind her ear. She froze. I did too. Her breath caught, just slightly, and then she laughed under it, almost whispering, "You shouldn't do that." "Sorry," I said, my hand retreating too fast. She looked away, but her smile stayed, small and real this time. "You remind me of someone," she said quietly. "Someone good or bad?" She didn't answer. She just stood, brushing the dust from her jeans, and said, "You should get back to work." When she walked away, the air felt thinner somehow, like she'd taken a piece of it with her. I watched her until she turned the corner, then stared at the empty space where she'd been, wondering why silence could feel so loud. Rain had a way of making everything quieter, the streets, the shop, even thoughts that usually wouldn't stop moving. That night, the rain was heavy enough to keep customers away, so I was alone, or I thought I was, until I saw the faint shape of someone standing by the door. It was her. Sanaa stepped in, shaking the rain off her umbrella, her hair damp at the edges, a soft gray sweater clinging to her wrists. "I didn't mean to interrupt," she said, closing the door behind her. "Layla said you'd still be here." "Yeah, I was just cleaning up." She hesitated, as if thinking of leaving, then exhaled. "I didn't want to drive home in this weather. The car's still acting up." "Stay until it slows," I said, nodding toward the small office space. "There's a heater in there." She smiled faintly, grateful but guarded. "Thanks." Inside, the office smelled of coffee and engine grease. I poured her a cup, and she took it carefully, both hands wrapped around it like it was something fragile. The rain against the windows filled the silence between us, steady and rhythmic. She looked around the room, the stack of receipts, the faded photos on the bulletin board, before saying, "You keep this place running by yourself?" "Mostly. My uncle owns it, but he's hardly here." "That must get lonely." Her tone was light, but the way she said lonely carried something else, like she wasn't asking about the shop. I shrugged. "Sometimes." We fell into a silence that wasn't awkward, just full. She watched the rain while I watched her, the way her thumb traced the rim of her cup, the way her shoulders softened when she forgot to hold them tight. "You ever feel like you got stuck between versions of yourself?" she said suddenly. "Like you're not who you were, but not who you're supposed to be either?" I didn't know what to say. I just nodded, because I did know that feeling, the half-life of waiting for something unnamed. She smiled at that, small, rueful, and whispered, "Then you understand." Outside, thunder rolled. Inside, something changed in the air. I noticed her hand resting on the table, inches from mine. My fingers twitched before I could stop them, the instinct to bridge that distance too strong. She noticed. She didn't move away. Her eyes met mine, steady, searching. I could see her thinking it through. The rules, the age, the unspoken consequences. I felt all of it too, hanging in the silence. Then her phone buzzed. She flinched, glanced down, and the name on the screen made her expression shutter closed. "I should take this," she said softly, standing up before I could say anything. She walked toward the door, her voice low as she answered. When she came back, the warmth between us was gone. "I should go," she said, eyes down. I wanted to stop her. I didn't. As she stepped out into the rain, she looked back, just once, and almost said something. Her lips parted, but the words never came. The door closed before I could ask what they would have been. I didn't see her for almost 2 weeks. Long enough to convince myself it had just been in my head. That night, that look, that pulse in the air before her phone rang. Then, one afternoon, she walked into the shop again. No car this time. Just her. "I was nearby," she said, voice too calm. "Thought I'd say hi." I tried to play along, acting like it was nothing. "Hi," I said. "How's the car?" She laughed, quiet, brittle, still pretending to live. The small talk fell apart almost instantly. There was too much history between the pauses now. Every word felt like a placeholder for something neither of us was brave enough to say. I wiped my hands with a rag just to have something to do. She stood by the counter, tracing the edge with her fingers. The light from the half-open blinds cut across her face, highlighting every tiny movement, the twitch of her jaw, the way her eyes kept darting away from mine. Finally, she said it. "This feels strange, doesn't it?" I froze. "What does?" "Us," she said softly. "Whatever this is." I opened my mouth, but no words came. It was like being caught somewhere between confession and denial, and neither would come out right. "I don't know," I said finally. "We just talk." "It's not." "It is," she cut in, sharper than she meant. Then her voice broke a little. "It is something. I don't know what, but it is." Her hands trembled slightly, and she pressed them flat against the counter to steady herself. I'd never seen her this undone. No polite distance, no careful phrasing. Just raw confusion wrapped in control. I stepped closer before I realized I was moving. The space between us tightened, heavy with things unsaid. She didn't back away this time. "You're young," she whispered. "You still believe everything means something." I forgot how that feels. "That's not what this is," I said. "It's not about age." "Then what?" she asked, almost desperate. "Tell me, because I can't figure it out. I can't sleep without thinking about the way you look at me, and I hate that I notice." Her words hit like a confession she never meant to give. The silence that followed felt alive, fragile, and terrifying. "I don't want to make your life smaller," she said, her voice barely a breath. "You still have time to grow out of this." "I don't want to," I said quietly. That stopped her. She looked up, eyes bright but unsteady, like she wanted to say something that might save us both and couldn't find the words. For a long time, we just stood there, the hum of the lights, the faint noise of a car passing outside, our breathing too loud in the small space. Finally, she whispered, almost to herself, "You don't know what you're doing to me." And before I could answer, she was already walking out, fast, deliberate, leaving the door half open, the air trembling with everything neither of us could take back. I didn't expect her to show up again. After what she'd said, "You don't know what you're doing to me," I thought she'd disappear for good. But one evening, near closing time, she appeared at the door again, this time holding a small brown envelope. "I won't stay long," she said, her voice quiet but steady. "I just need a favor." She placed the envelope on the counter. I could see her hands trembling, though she tried to hide it by tucking them into her coat pockets. "It's just a few photos," she continued. "Old ones. I need them scanned and emailed. I don't trust the place downtown with things like this." I nodded, though something in her tone made me uneasy. "Sure," I said. "You can wait here if you want." She hesitated, then sat down near the window, arms crossed tight, eyes on the rain starting outside again. When I opened the envelope, a faint scent of old paper and lavender rose from it, the kind that comes from things kept too long in drawers. There were maybe 10 photos inside, faded but careful. A younger Sanaa, maybe in her late 20s, standing beside a man I didn't recognize. His arm was around her shoulders, both of them smiling. Then, the last one, a small boy, maybe 5 or 6, grinning in front of a birthday cake. Her hand was on his shoulder. I froze. She noticed. "That's my son," she said softly. "Was." Her voice cracked on the word. I didn't say anything. There wasn't anything to say. "He was 7 when it happened," she went on. "Car accident. His father drove. Neither of them made it." She smiled then, small, fragile, the kind of smile people wear to survive their own story. "It's been 11 years, and I still can't throw away his things. I keep thinking I'll forget the sound of his voice if I do." The rain outside blurred everything. I wanted to reach out, to touch her hand, but it felt too small an act for what she was giving me. This quiet, unbearable truth. "I think that's why you scare me," she said after a long silence. "You look at me the way he used to. Not my son, his father. Like I'm still worth something." She turned to me, eyes red but dry. "It's not fair, is it? For you to remind me of someone I lost." Her words left a hollow space inside me. I wanted to tell her it wasn't like that, that I wasn't a shadow of someone gone, but I didn't. Because maybe part of her needed it to be true. I finished scanning the photos quietly, each click of the machine feeling heavier than the last. When I handed the envelope back, she didn't take it right away. Instead, she whispered, "You shouldn't look at me the way you do." I swallowed hard. "Then stop walking into the places where I am." Her hand brushed mine as she finally took the envelope. She didn't flinch this time. The rain softened to a whisper outside, but the silence between us had changed, heavier now, honest in a way neither of us could undo. It was a Sunday evening, the kind that sits between seasons, where the air feels unsure. The shop was closed, the lights dimmed, and I was sweeping the floor when I saw her reflection in the glass. She didn't knock. She just pushed the door open and stepped in like someone returning to a place they never meant to leave. "I shouldn't be here," she said. "I know." We stood there, two people surrounded by unfinished work and too many words. Her eyes were tired, rimmed red like she hadn't slept. I wanted to ask why she came, but I already knew. She exhaled, a sound that wasn't quite relief or surrender, just something that came when holding it in any longer wasn't possible. "After that night," she said, "I tried to forget, to pretend you were just kind. But you're not just kind, are you?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. She smiled faintly. "You make me feel like there's still time. That's the cruelest thing of all." I put the broom down. "Why cruel?" "Because I know what happens when you start to believe again," she whispered. "You lose more than before." Her words were quiet, but they carried the weight of years, of loss, fear, and every wall she'd built to keep the world out. I stepped closer. She didn't move away. The silence thickened until even the rain outside seemed to hold its breath. I could see her pulse at her throat, the way her fingers gripped the edge of the counter just to stay steady. "I don't want to ruin anything for you," she said. "You won't." Her gaze lifted, sharp and searching. "You say that like you don't know what I ruin." "I don't care," I said, the words trembling out before I could think. But I didn't finish. Because she shook her head, a single tear tracing down her cheek, and whispered, "Don't say it. Not like this." So I didn't. I just stood there, and she stood there, and somehow that was enough. After a long while, she stepped forward and leaned against the counter beside me, close enough that our arms touched. Her skin was warm, alive in a way that made everything else fade. We didn't talk. We didn't need to. The truth was already between us, in the shared quiet, in the way our breathing found the same rhythm. When she finally turned her face toward me, she didn't kiss me. She just rested her forehead against mine, a soft, trembling moment that said more than words could survive. I closed my eyes. For once, there was no guilt, no pretending. Just two people who had run out of reasons to lie to themselves. When she pulled away, her voice was a whisper. "You'll be fine without me." I almost believed her. She left before I could open my eyes again, the faint sound of the door closing behind her blending with the wind outside. But the warmth she left stayed, quiet, unbearable, real. It's been almost a year since the last time I saw her. Funny how a single year can stretch and fold in strange ways. Some days feel like forever, and others like the brief space between two heartbeats. The shop hasn't changed much. Same smell of oil and coffee, same radio that never works right. But I have. Or maybe, I just started noticing things differently. The quiet between conversations, the weight of small kindnesses, how love isn't always about keeping someone close. Sometimes, it's about learning when to let them go. I still think about Sana sometimes. Not the way I used to, not with that restless ache, but with a kind of quiet gratitude. She walked into my life like a storm that didn't destroy anything, just rearranged it. After she left, I found a small note tucked inside the drawer where she used to sit. It wasn't a goodbye, not really. Just a few words in her handwriting. "Some people come into your life to remind you you're still alive. Don't waste that reminder." I read it a dozen times that day, maybe more. At first, it felt like she was telling me to move on. But now I think she was telling me something else, that what we shared wasn't meant to be permanent. It was meant to wake us up. I started finishing the classes I'd been putting off. Fixed up my uncle's old truck. I even began talking to customers more, not the surface kind of talking, but real conversations. The kind that make you feel seen. Maybe that's what she gave me. The courage to look at people, not just past them. Sometimes, when the rain hits the roof at night, it sounds like the evening she showed up, that quiet rhythm between us, the one that said everything we couldn't. I still wonder if she ever thinks of me. I like to believe she does, just enough to smile. I've learned that love isn't always loud. It's not fireworks or grand gestures. Sometimes it's a silence that lingers, a warmth that stays long after the person is gone. Love doesn't always demand to be lived out loud. Sometimes, it just asks to be remembered kindly. I never saw her again, but I stopped waiting. Because what she gave me wasn't a promise, it was presence. And that's something I'll carry quietly, like a song you don't play anymore, but still hum without realizing. I think we both left each other better than we found one another. And maybe that's all love ever needs to do. If this story made you feel something, let me know in the comments. Would you want more stories like this?